What's going on, guys? I'm a regular guy with the Regular Guy Firearms channel. Thanks for watching. Now, you read the title, and we're going to go ahead and just jump right into this video here, okay? So, AR handguards. What should you get? Free-floated, not free-floated, key mod, M-lock, freaking quad rails. What the hell is with all of this? And why is it confusing to a lot of guys? Well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and try to explain why there are certain things out, their advantages or disadvantages, and my personal opinions based on that. Okay, now first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and discuss the difference between free float and non-free floated handguards. Okay, now non-free floated handguards, your slip ring handguards, right? Okay, they're just a drop-in stuff. Nothing's bolted on or anything like that, except for very, very small. What's the word? Exceptions. But, you know, they're just drop in and there it is, right? The reason why we call them free float and non-free float is that when you're attaching the handguards to the actual rifle and whatnot, a non-free floated handguard is a handguard to where its barrel nut and handguard is secured in such a way to where something, meaning the handguard, is making contact with the barrel at a certain point, disturbing harmonics and all types of jazz like that, right? It's either the barrel nut or the handguard itself that's making contact with the barrel. Now, free-floated handguards are handguards that are bolted to either just a receiver or the receiver and the barrel nut, and neither one of these makes contact with your barrel and disturbs barrel harmonics and all the other jazz. The reason why it's made such a big deal is that in arenas where precision absolutely counts, and we're talking like Mark 12 style rifles here where you're trying to get the tightest groups possible, you want a free floated handguard. Now, for that being said, there's a lot of guys that have self-defense rifles or fighting rifles that truly believe that a free floated handguard is the only way to go. It's really not, because at very most what it adds as far as accuracy to a rifle is a ½ inch at 100. That's it. It's half the length of my thumb. When we're trying to hit these, it's not a big deal, especially in a civilian self-defense role where we're talking about engagement distances in feet rather than yards, okay? Or at the very most down a hallway. So, not a big deal. Don't worry about it. I can tell you from experience right now that I've made single round hits at 600 yards with a standard set of slip ring, non-free floated handguards on a 14.5 inch barrel using 62 grain Wolf. It does make a difference. Just not enough for most people, just not enough for it to affect most people. Does that make sense? Now, we're going to go over the handguard types. Now, the first thing that we're going to go over here is the key mod and M-lock style handguards, okay? This is the most recently developed thing, and this is the new whiz-bang, okay? This is the stuff that you see a lot of people marketing and stuff like that. You see a lot of people like Travis Haley and whatnot that are, you know, just shooting the shit out of things and, you know, selling the absolute fuck out of these handguards. Now, are they actually up to snuff? Well, the advantages that handguards like these have are the following. Number one, they are very light. They're very light. And you pair it with something like a lightweight profile barrel and it'll feel like moving parts, really important sections of the rifle are missing because you've removed a lot of nose weight. They're very easy to maneuver around and manipulate and stuff like that. Okay. Second thing, you have just a lot of dicks on this rifle. Okay. Yeah. Now that you see it, you won't unsee it. But with that being said, because there are so many of these on here, and you could tell right away, they took this from like stock shelving and be like, I want to put that on a handguard. That's it. But with that being said, again, they're very configurable. Because there's so many slots, it's very easy to position something exactly where you want it. And that is a tremendous advantage. They're very light, and they're very configurable. Okay. Now, the con to these is that, generally speaking, there's more expense on these. Okay? They will cost you more. The second one is that there's no heat shielding in like any of them. Okay? Granted, there's a lot of holes in the handguard and it vents fairly effectively. But guys that I know, and I myself, you know, guys that run out and they shoot a lot, they take classes and they do a lot of high volume stuff, you will end up wearing gloves. This is just a fact. There's no heat shielding in them, and they will get hot. Guaranteed. They will get hot. Now, that being said, they do vent heat effectively. Okay. Now, I'm going to get questions in the comments right now about, oh, well, Keymod or M-LOK, which one should I do? And then an internet debate will rage in the comments. I'm going to tell you right now, they are pretty much the same thing. They are pretty much the same thing. Okay? Just make sure that what you're buying is from a reputable source. Yes, there are people producing absolute garbage for both. So just make sure that you're getting it from a reputable source, whatever it is that you're trying to bolt to your Keymod or M-LOK thing, and you're good. Seriously. Whichever one you get for cheaper, do it. If that's your choice. Makes sense? Now, before that, we had these. Okay? These guys mounted rail sections and you know, little handguard covers and all sorts of stuff like that directly through screws. Okay? Now, this is a slightly older innovation, but it shares a lot of the same properties in that, well, it's definitely light, it's definitely really maneuverable, and it's very configurable because there's a bunch of screw holes in this friggin' thing. The one real con that I see to both of these is that they are thin. Okay? Like I said, they don't shed heat very well. What I'm more concerned with, honestly, what I'm more concerned with is Murphy tripping me up by the feet, me falling with the gun and denting the absolute crap out of my handguard. Now, does that mean the rifle's broken? No, but what it does mean is that I have to replace a fairly expensive handguard now. Okay, and there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to jump out and say, oh, well, that's never going to happen. What are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. Anybody that goes to training schools or anything like that has seen these, had the absolute crap get bent out of them. Is it kind of hard to do? Yeah. Is it rare? Yeah. But it is something to be concerned about, and it is something that no one talks about for some reason, even though it definitely happens. So there you go. Okay. Now, one more con that I have on all three of them is that they're very dependent on screws either way. Okay, if you attach something like a rail section or something like that to either one of these, okay, you are dependent on screws and you are dependent on Loctite. They're advertised as just quick and, you know, just really quick and very, you know, easy to attach and detach and all that stuff. That's very misleading because anybody that I've ever seen that follows that marketing trope, stuff falls off their gun. Like little rail sections and stuff like that. So whatever you end up bolting to it, you will end up using Loctite. These are just things that are going to happen. Now, is this a serious con? No, because anything that requires a screw should have Loctite on your gun anyway. So it's not a big deal, but it is something to watch out for. Now, going further back in time, we have the good old quad rails, okay? And yeah, there's nothing on this gun, but that's only because I stripped the stuff off of it to outfit other guns that I'm reviewing and stuff like that. For instance, the RWMD rifle that I put down over here, that's got stuff on it from this gun, so whatever. But we have the good old quad rails, right? This was developed in response to dudes that were just tired of duct taping lights to rifles. That's all it is. So the development was made to where you just add all these little 1913 sections in there, and they are in fact very, very configurable. And I don't have to sit there and mess with Loctite and stuff like I previously mentioned because the rail sections are already there to start with, right? Now, there are a couple of things to watch for. For one, they're a shade heavier. Obviously, right? They're a shade heavier than everything previously mentioned, okay? And it's very rare to find actual heat shielding inside the handguard itself. So these also get real hot. That's actually what these little rubber ladders are for, is heat, Okay, you see them sectioned in different places where stuff used to be. Okay, or where my hands would contact, and then the open spots are where stuff used to be. Makes sense? Now, with that being said, there's one that a lot of people say is a con, but it's really not. And it's that, oh, well, I don't want to carve my hands up on that freaking handguard in like the winter and whatnot and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be real with you. You're a vagina. If that bothers you, honestly, seriously, man, freaking, you're going to have to take your purse, pick it up off the ground, right? You need a couple of staples. Staple the strap that broke back onto your purse, and then put your vagina back in it, because you're embarrassing us with it floating all over the ground. Seriously, quit with this argument. It's not a real argument. It's not. Wear gloves. Get over yourself. But those are the real cons that I've ever seen with quad rails, okay? A big plus to them, though, is that while I don't have to mess with key mod and stuff like that, or Loctite, really, a good thing about them as well, and I've seen this example repeated over and over and over and over again, is that they're hardy. They're very tough. You know, for those of you that don't know, I've been in combat engineer circles and stuff like that since I entered the Army. And with that being said, a lot of stupid crap happens to these guns. Either it's Joe's fault or it's not his fault. And more often than not, the handguards are just fine. It is very rare that I see them bent up, broken, that type of stuff. Yes, it does happen because Joe has an incredible talent for breaking things, but it's pretty rare, okay? So that's a big pro in its favor, okay? So now that the pros and cons have been discussed for this, we're going to go even farther back, and we're going to talk about these guys, the old school A2 handguards, right? First and foremost, there is a huge advantage to these, and that is there's a lot of really good heat shielding in the handguards. They're double heat shielded. You can actually see that, okay? And because of the vent holes in the handguard itself, it vents heat very, very effectively, and it keeps it off your hands. I can stay on this gun for 9 magazines before I end up having to come off it because it's too hot. And that's high volume, speedy fire too. I can't say that about any of the other handguard types that I mentioned. It's just not happening. It's really not. Okay? And that's barehanded too, no gloves. Now, I said before that the quad rails were developed because dudes were tired of bolting things, duct taping lights to rifles. Now that we've advanced a little bit, there are guys like Ergo that have developed little rail sections that you can bolt to these handguards. So the biggest con is gone now. Now it's shifted my thinking about this a lot. Okay. Now, continuing though, a consideration rather than a con to these is that they're lighter than quad rails, but they're heavier than Keymod or M-LOK. It's right in that middle ground between there. Okay. And like the quad rails and military stuff, yes, I've seen these broken and cracked and stuff like that, but it's also rare. They are pretty tough for what they are. Now, for those of you that mess with night vision and PEC 15s, D-balls, that type of thing, don't even consider these because they do move left and right. You will lose your zero and you're going to have a bad time. Ask me how I know. I tried because and you'll see why here in a minute. But for the rest of like the civilian populace and whatnot that does this, all we're really going to ever end up mounting to a rifle is a set of sights, an optic, and a light, and then a sling. Done. Right? So what do you need anything else for? That's the big thing that I'm saying, is that you have great heat shielding. It's between the quad rail and the Keymod for weight, right? They are hardy. They're easy to install and take off. And the biggest plus is that they're effective and they are really cheap. Really cheap. Okay? With the mount, or with the rail section and the handguards, we're looking at like $38. That's crazy. And any gun guy that's done the AR thing for a while has like a box just loaded full of spare parts, and there is just a lot of random stuff in there For me personally, I have like 6 sets of these in carbine length. Okay? That's actually kind of nuts. So when you think about what, in the civilian world, if you think about what we really need, it's an optic and a light, or if you know how to use an AR CQB holdover, iron sights and a light. We don't need anything else. You know, even if you wanted to do a foregrip or something, what's bolted in here can go in under here. You know, and there's a lot of guys that are going to talk about handguard ergonomics and where the hands are going to go and all that other stuff. Some of the very best shooters on the earth, okay, they may not be using the same handguards because they like free-floated stuff, but some of the best shooters, rifle shooters in the country are running free-floated cylindrical tubes. No hand stops, none of that. You know, so that is something to consider, in my mind anyway, because if it's effective, it works, and it's affordable, I'm on board all day. Makes sense? Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to dissuade you from which one is what. That's dumb, because all of this is personal preference to me. But what I've noticed over time is that it is indeed that, a personal preference. It's what's going to work for you, and it's what you can see as a personal pro and con. Just like all of the opinions that I have were all my personal pro and cons based on my mileage and my opinions, right? Am I going to bash you if you get key mod or M-lock? No. You know, if I see a dude with quad rails, I'm like, good on you, dude. And in all honesty, as of late, I'm really liking these. I'm really liking these handguards because, God, they work. They work great, and they do everything that I need, unless I'm training with night vision, which I do occasionally do because I still wear a green suit. Make sense? Other than that, though, man, until I get on some other sauce, I could see a lot more of these starting to make their way onto my guns. But if you have any questions or comments, opinions on this, go ahead and throw that in the comments box below. I absolutely love discussions like these because they can be very productive rather than counterproductive. You know, and you can always tell now, especially with the little group of guys that we have following this channel, you can tell who's just trying to be a troll and who's asking a legitimate question. So I really do appreciate you guys for actually having constructive and not absolutely retarded bullshit to say. So good on you guys for all of that. But I'd like to get the discussion going. So say what you got to say in the comments. But remember, guys, with all of that being said, take a shot, guys that made that comment last video. But with all that being said, take another one. Remember, guys, a regular guy's firearm is the last defense against tyranny. Be easy.